Good morning. Good morning. I am being loud for my mother, who when she was a daughter had no one to speak for her.
Alzo mi voz porque tengo la esperanza que el mundo puede cambiar y porque nadie debe sufrir solo y en silencio.
I am loud because I stand for justice.
I am loud for the victims of sexual assault. You're not alone. Speak up. Remember that we are all pure in the eyes of God. Your inner strength will help you overcome, and like the birds, your spirit will soar again.
I am loud for those who are not yet ready to speak for themselves. We hear you, and we stand beside you.
I am loud for those who can't be.
Alzo mi voz porque aún nos queda un gran camino por recorrer. Alzo mi voz porque todos conocemos a alguien. Alzo mi voz porque la solidaridad es mi herramienta más fuerte.
I am loud to advocate for military veterans. Silencing victims of sexual assault is an act of negligence and abuse.
I am loud so that families, aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents might see that there is hope when the truth is laid bare, that the future is bright when secrets are dragged out of dark places and left to evaporate in the sunlight, that the only way we can all move forward together is through honesty, empathy, and justice.
I am loud for all of the people who haven't yet found their voice to speak out about sexual assault. Good morning. You know, when I hear, after each breakfast that I host here every year, I hear how deeply moved people really are by the number of people who stand up if they know someone who has been affected by sexual assault. It is really a powerful demonstration of caring and support. So again this year, I want to invite you and give you the opportunity to be heard. So if you know of someone who has been impacted by sexual assault, will you please join me in standing to honor them? Take a moment to look around the room. There are more than 1,000 people in this room this morning. Take a look at all the people who are standing. It is amazing, and I can feel the caring and support in this room. So, thank you. We are all standing with you. And thank you to our advocates this morning for sharing your stories as well. Thank you. And with that, I would like to welcome you to KSARC's 28th annual, isn't that amazing? Be Loud Breakfast. My name is Margot Myers. I am simply delighted to be with you here this morning. And first, I do want to begin with some very important thank yous to some of KSARC's key investors. It is truly a privilege to open by acknowledging our corporate and organizational supporters. You truly set a very high standard for philanthropic excellence and lead the way for others. Through your example, you are promoting positive social change. Because look at the people in this room. This is simply amazing. And I love this breakfast every year because it's so much fun to see new people who haven't been and see people who have been coming for many, many years. So because of our sponsors' investment, you are investing in the possibility of creating a world without sexual violence. So we would like to take a moment to highlight our top-level partners. And if you would please hold your applause to the end, and then we will give them a very big round of applause. We want to say thank you to our premier sponsor, which is Expeditors International, our visionary sponsors, the Archdiocese of Seattle and Group Health, our champion sponsors, the Committee for Children, Quality Business Systems, Schrader Goldmark and Bender, and Vreeland Law, and to the advocate, partner, and in-kind sponsors that you see listed here as well as in the program. So let's take a moment now to be loud for our sponsors. Thank you. And also this morning, I want to give special recognition to First Lady Trudy Inslee. Mrs. Inslee has been just an active champion of social services programs and organizations that really focus on the needs of sexual assault survivors. And I would also like to acknowledge Seattle City Council member Tim Burgess and King County Council Chair Joe McDermott. Both men have been strong advocates and spokespersons for the needs of sexual assault victims. So to all of our elected officials who are here this morning, thank you. Thank you for being champions for the important work of KSARC. Because truly, your advocacy, I haven't had enough coffee yet this morning, adds breadth and depth to the impact that KSARC has in prevention, treatment, and policy development, and that makes a huge difference. So we are honored to have all of you here today. So let's thank them for everything they do for KSARC. Thank you. And now, there's really no other way to understand the impact, the genuine impact that you have as an advocate, a supporter, and as an investor. Real impact is best viewed through the eyes of KSARC's clients. When you hear what brought them to the organization and you see the journey that they have traveled, you start to feel the true impact of their investment. Walter Campari is a grandfather, and after raising his children, he never expected to have young children again in his home, but we can never truly know the future and the circumstances that will change our lives and the lives of those we love. And this is where KSARC shines, and I mean truly, truly shines. KSARC treats the entire family and gives them the tools that all of them need to heal from the devastating effects of sexual violence. So please help me welcome Walter Campari this morning. Walter?
Good morning. I'm honored to be speaking to you today and sharing my experience with KSARC. Let me put these glasses on, I'm blind. Public speaking is not really my thing. In fact, I hated it when I was younger. It brings back those awful memories of having to give school speeches. But I'm up here doing what is uncomfortable because I am so proud of my granddaughter, and I want you to know her. Let me give you a little backstory so you know how I ended up at KSARC. I raised my children and was enjoying having an empty nest and focusing on my work. I had a grown son who lived in Tennessee with his wife and 2 kids. My brother lived there too, so we checked in with him to help him out here and there. But things changed pretty quickly when my brother passed away, and later my son lost his battle with lymphoma. His wife was not stable, and soon I started receiving calls that she was not providing proper parenting for the kids. I called the house once, and the mother wasn't even there. I ended up asking local police to do a welfare check on the kids, and sure enough, they were home alone. The police also got some reports that they may have been living with a pedophile. The police had enough concerns about their well-being that they removed the kids and put them in foster care. So imagine this. My grandchildren are completely across the country, and I find out they're living with a sex offender. I felt utter rage towards this man and helpless to help my grandchildren. When I was notified of this, within an hour I had to make a decision that they needed to come live with me. So it seemed like a whirlwind. In a matter of days, I was now parents to my grandkids, who were 7 and 11 at the time. This is where my story with KSARC starts. I was told that my granddaughter, Jessica, may have been sexually abused by the pedophile that was living in the home. Police found sexually explicit pictures and images of children when they searched his premises in Knoxville, Tennessee. The first time I met a KSARC advocate was at a child interview in Seattle after Jessica came to live with me. They asked Jessica to tell them what happened when she was living in Tennessee. And my world as I knew it changed on this day. Jessica told the interviewer that she had been sexually abused by this man from the ages of 3 to 7 years old. He was hurting her practically up to the day she left Tennessee to come live with me. Soon after the child interview, Jessica started having problems at school. She had difficulty getting along with people, and I could tell her self-esteem was really bad. She made comments that no one liked her and that she didn't even like herself. I knew she needed counseling, so I called KSARC. I was surprised to learn that there were even services for me. When I called to get Jessica into counseling, I was told that I could take part in parent education. Just so you know, services at KSARC weren't always smooth. I'm from New York. I like to get to the point, and now. Seattle folks aren't like that. They say they say all these nice things and they suggest all these nice things, and quite frankly, I couldn't see myself doing it that way. So we shared a few words with one another, or maybe I shared a few words with them. But I really did learn a lot from parent education in terms of how sexual assault impacts kids. But keep in mind, I haven't had children in my house for quite some time. And I got a 7-year-old and an 11-year-old out of the blue. Sometimes our styles clash because of the New York thing, or the Seattle thing. I always thought being strong and toughing it out was a way to get through things. I realize that it may get you through, but it doesn't fix anything. So my parent educator, Marie, who's over there, taught me more about the importance of sharing emotions and communicating those thoughts and feelings with one another. It helped me a lot. I tend to keep everything inside. I'm not big on sharing. But I learned that it was important to do this to be of support to Jessica. Now we have very free and open conversations. At the same time I was in parent education, Jessica was in therapy. I fairly quickly was able to see a difference in her behavior. She was opening up. We never talked about the abuse prior to this. She liked her therapist a lot and opened up to her. Her therapist connected with Jessica like no one else had. And I really liked her, even though she was a North Carolina Tar Heel. When Jessica was nearing the end of therapy, I was invited to hear Jessica share more details about the abuse and how it impacted her. This was hard. I had a general idea of what happened to her, but I did not know the details. I was scared to know because what she had to go through, but also because I thought I would even be more enraged at the offender. When I first heard what he had done to my granddaughter, all I could think about was how I could make him pay for this. And by the way, this guy was convicted and sent to prison. But hearing Jessica talk about the abuse in this session helped me to see more clearly how manipulative offenders are and how they take advantage of innocent kids. They distort and destroy kids for their own purpose. In my opinion, it's the lowest form of human behavior. It bothered me, but I'm glad she was able to tell me. I felt anger towards the offender. I remember telling Jessica, this is a big step of moving on with life. I remember telling her that I will do whatever I can to make your life happy and successful. Jessica is 12 years old now. She still struggles with self-esteem and emotions like a lot of 12-year-old girls. But on the whole, she is okay. She's intelligent, outgoing, verbal, and creative, and I love her dearly. I am sorry for all the people I have known over the years that got their lives messed up without services like KSART. This is a great agency that fulfills a much-needed service for people who are sexually assaulted. It helps people get out of the darkness and shame so they don't have to keep everything inside of them. It allows people to get out in the open. It helps in the healing process and lets them know they are not alone. They don't have to internalize it and hide it. I think it is important for adults in charge to know how to protect and help the young people so this never happens, so they don't have to go through what we went through. Educate yourself. Create open communication with your kids. Do everything you can to learn about sexual assault. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to my story and Jessica's story. I hope it inspires you to tell your story. I hope it moves you to help kids like Jessica. This is a great organization. They change lives. Thank you.
I debated whether I should wear mascara this morning. Thank you, Walter, for sharing your story and for bringing Jessica to KSARC. Jessica, it's nice to see you here this morning. Thank you for coming. It's never, ever an easy story to share. Believe me, the stories that you hear here, there's many more details in the background. And we're glad that things are getting better for your family. Please know that you certainly have the support of every single person in this room. Thank you again, Walter. Tough, inspiring, innovative, and real. These are just a few of the words that people have used to describe our next speaker, Mary Ellen Stone. Mary Ellen has made KSARC and its mission really her life's work. She was affectionately referred to by a colleague as the godmother for all of the executive directors in human services because she is so well known and respected. And I've had the opportunity to see Mary Ellen in action up close this year as we work on several KSARC initiatives. And the emails that come in the very early morning and even late at night, this woman never rests, I promise. She never fails to inspire to make a difference. She is really putting a dent in the world that only she is capable of making. And she has truly, truly changed the landscape of sexual assault prevention, education, and victim advocacy. She is leading the forward movement that inspires all of us to imagine a world without sexual violence. Please welcome KSARC's Executive Director, Mary Ellen Stone. Mary Ellen?
It's, this is a fabulous view. I say this every year, and this year, I think more than ever, this room is packed. And I want to say, give yourselves a round of applause. This is the biggest group we've had. Thank you to the 90 table captains, 90-plus table captains we have here today, because we couldn't do this without you. Our table captains are the ones who spread the word, who get the message out, who work your circles of support. So thank you so much for being here. I have a lot of things I want to share with you this morning, but I want to talk too about the progress that we've made and how we are, sort of a state of how I see things. We have moved this event from being merely a cornerstone fundraising event to an opportunity for us to come together and to stand together and to celebrate all that we've done. We have activists and supporters and survivors and individuals here all coming together to say it's time to be loud about sexual assault. This is a place where we renew our commitment. This is a place where we celebrate what we've done and we renew the commitment that we've made to end the sexual violence that we have and to make sure that we have a world without that. This is a defining moment. It's been an extraordinary year for us and for this issue. If the International Women's Marches of, 4 weeks ago showed us nothing else, it's that we are part of a global movement. We are part of people coming together, of women and men, children, coming together to say, stop, enough of the violence. And for me, and I know for a lot of you, one of the most powerful moments of this event is when Margot asks us to all stand up. We're standing shoulder to shoulder with each other and with all the people who've been impacted by sexual violence. And that's a very powerful moment for all of us. And I know that carries a lot of us through every year. You know, right now I think we may be feeling like we're backsliding, that there's some despair, but I want to tell you from my vantage point, we've made a lot of progress. And let me just highlight a couple things that this year I think have made a difference. The public response to the Stanford rape case. That case shocked the nation, both in the premeditated actions of Brock Turner and the light sentence that he received. But I think the concern over the very light sentence that he received, the 6-month sentence, is a real sign of how public opinion has shifted towards what constitutes rape and also the criminal justice response. So I see this as progress. I see it as progress when the issue of sexual assault and sexual harassment was so prominent in the elections last year. And as painful as it was, it really prompted many women to speak out, often for the first time, to say, yes, this happened to me too. And simply being able to say that out loud, I think was progress. At CASARC, we're creating some new ways for people to share their experience that they haven't done before. Earlier this year, we launched Amplified Stories, and that's a platform that we're giving to victims and survivors and family members to share their stories. And what we found, too, is that here, like across the country, a lot of people shared their stories and said, this is the first time I told anybody. And they used words like cathartic and necessary and empowering. We believe if we can't talk about it, we can't stop it. So a couple weeks ago, too, we had our very first pop-up event in Westlake, and I'm hoping some of you got to that. It was very moving and very terrific. We had volunteers collecting signatures for people to literally on the streets, to stand with victims. And we created this terrific, we have pictures of it up there, big montage where people could sign on and stand with victims. It's out in the foyer. I know a lot of you signed on to it before you came in. We had well over 1,000 people sign up. And again, it's that standing together, standing with us that we're doing. Another sign of progress to me is the strong awareness of Project 360. Project 360 links the early childhood sexual assault with youth homelessness, helps people understand that. And we have had tremendous success and progress. I particularly want to say that I'm excited that Project 360 is in its 4th year, thanks to strong support from a lot of leaders in this room, Brettler Foundation, Avon Foundation, City of Seattle, Mayor Murray and Councilmember Burgess, King County Councilmember Joe McDermott, and the Office of Violence Against Women at the federal level. I am buoyed by the success of this project and the kind of support we're getting. And those of you who were with us last year probably remember Bonnie and Tyler, a couple young people who you see on the video there, who shared their story of homelessness and healing from sexual assault. And Project 360 works. We see remarkable results, like 60% of all the youth who participate, 60% of the youth complete therapy, which is more than anyone would expect for youth in this situation. 71% improve their housing situation, and a full 83% improve their overall functioning. That is tremendously successful. I'll tell you too, in a sign of where we are right now, that I'm very concerned about potential reductions to some of the federal initiatives that are out there, such as the Violence Against Women Act, because that would impact Project 360. It will also impact the specialized services, legal services we provide to Spanish-speaking refugees and immigrants. And if that is the case, we will be in touch. I'm going to be depending on you for your advocacy and for your voice on this, because we're going to need your help. Another sign of progress, and I want to bring it in closer, is it's a real sign of progress to me when we can have a grandfather and his daughter talk about what happened. If we can't talk honestly about what happened, we can't solve this, we can't heal. Walter and Jessica, thank you again for sharing your story and for letting us stand with you. From where I stand, up here, in front of you, there's been a lot of progress. And I would be remiss if I didn't say there have been some challenges. One I want to highlight is the sexual assault awareness, or sexual assault protection order didn't make it out of the 2016 legislative session last year. We have a common sense bill that allows the judge in a protection order filing to set the length of time for a protection order to be in place rather than an arbitrary 2-year limit. Right now, that 2-year limit means that the victim has to go back every 2 years, face the offender, get a protection order for another 2 years. That isn't right, it's not fair, and it doesn't help the people that this law is designed to protect. Last year, the bill was on its way to being signed by the governor when, unfortunately, a very last-minute effort by the gun lobby to weaken the bill prevailed. Bill died at the 11th hour. And so now we're back this session. The NRA is also back. We, however, have been able to craft some language that is allowing this bill to move forward. Right this minute, we've got staff testifying in front of Senate committee to move it forward. It's already out of the House committees, 12-1. We're very encouraged by it, and I'm going to need your support. At the end, we're asking everyone to call people on the Senate Law and Justice Committee and tell them this. Rape victims deserve the same kind of protection under the law as do other victims. And we want a sexual assault protection order. This is the 3rd time. We want it now. We don't want to wait anymore. You'll get the details, but know that this is going to happen today. We're on a time crunch. So, thank you. This is about all of us. This is absolutely about all of us. You know, we talk about we can't talk about what we can't stop what we can't talk about. We've got to be talking about it. We've seen some big changes in how we talk about some important issues. Sexual assault broadly, and also prevention, and that's what we want to touch on just briefly this morning. When language defines how we think about an issue, defines our reality. And over the last couple years, we've seen some real significant shifts in how we talk about preventing sexual assault. We are moving from an individual focus on how do individual victims reduce the risk to saying, let's look upstream. Let's look at how do we stop people from committing sexual assault. Research done by the Centers for Disease Control say that there are a number of risk factors that we need to be paying attention to at the individual, at the relationship, and at the societal level to make it more likely that someone's going to commit sexual assault. You know, and all of you know, changing individual behavior is a pretty complicated undertaking. And so what you might want to think about this is like layers of an onion, that there's us, we're connected in relationships and relationships into society, and then sort of that broader picture. And that in every level, there are risk factors, whether it's individuals who can't empathize or understand somebody else's pain, to relationships that maybe are characterized by violence and abuse, or communities that perhaps tolerate abuse, or society that says certain groups of people are inferior just because of who they are. And we know all of those factors combine together to encourage a climate that says sexual assault is okay. The good news for us is that all of these factors can be impacted by prevention, and that's where we're wanting to shift. Because we've got the ability, each and every one of us, to change attitudes, to change behaviors, to promote healthy relationships, and to shift our thinking and our culture so that we don't tolerate sexual assault. We stand up for victims and their families, and we're standing up for change. We're standing up for a world that's free of sexual violence. Prevention starts with us, change starts with us. So I'll give you a couple things we can do. And rest assured, we'll be sending you an email out, so you'll have all this stuff. But part of it is acknowledging how often this sexual assault happens. I mean, that's a pretty basic piece. We want to speak out more about derogatory jokes and comments. We want to refute comments that blame women and children for their own victimization. We have to talk with our children and teens. That is essential about what healthy relationships look like. We need to encourage our schools to have more prevention programming in place, And we'll be sending you this link to our website. In a couple minutes, you're going to meet a young woman named Bridget who has done some really remarkable prevention work in her own community. And later on this, actually a couple months from now, we're going to be hopefully launching some new prevention programming that research has shown has really moved the needle on relationships with high school kids, middle school and high school kids. We're very excited about this. I'm going to be talking with a number of you in the room about how you can support and get involved with this. We're at an extraordinary moment of time right now. You have been part of making where we are today happen. You're wearing your buttons. You know, and when I first heard these buttons, I thought, really? Buttons? Buttons? There's a picture, buttons. Buttons, but it's about changing, it's about how we talk about it. It's about communicating and saying this is an important thing, about this is the issue. You're changing the conversation. There is no question in my mind we're making progress. And here's an example of the kind of progress we're making. Last year, a group of generous donors led by one of our former board members came together to say we want to create a challenge pool for the breakfast. They stretched, they asked us to stretch, and we did. This year, they're saying this is an extraordinary moment of time. We're back. We're back 30% more over what we were last year. We've already got over $65,000 committed to stretch, and they're asking us to stretch again. This is an indication of the time that we're living in and how people are standing with us. So I want to say it would be easy to think we're not making progress. But we are. When you look at the public response, when we look at prevention starting with us, don't feel like it's I'm an only voice, because obviously we are all very much in this together. I'm going to leave you with a couple things. So when you leave, you're going to be calling your people at the Senate Law and Justice Committee. Resolve to take one prevention step. We'll send you that list. It's easy. Worry a button, talk with people, and support our work with a gift. We'll get that email out to you by 1 o'clock today. And because, and I hear some of you thinking, oh God, more emails from Mary Ellen. But I go to sleep early, I have to say, Margot, really. I'm an early bird. We're making progress. We are making progress. We're doing this because you're with us. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you so very much for being loud with everyone, for standing with us, and for doing the work that you're doing. And now I'm going to turn, I'm looking at Margot, who's going to clue me over to the video. Okay, thank you.
I saw it happening, but what was I supposed to do?
It was just a joke.
No one believed me.
I thought that's just what guys do.
When I met Bridget, she already had that spark. She knew what she wanted to do at Roosevelt. She knew that bringing sexual assault prevention to her school was incredibly important.
My name is Bridget Ewell, and I'm a senior at Roosevelt High School. I had a friend talk to me about being sexually assaulted, and I was so surprised. I had absolutely no idea how to react and what steps to take after hearing about this. And that was really scary for me because I wanted to do everything that I could to help her, and I really didn't feel like I had the resources or the ability to do so.
Bridget knew that she wanted to bring sexual assault prevention work to her high school community, and and she realized that that is a big job. So she approached KSARC and was able to receive support around doing the incredible work that she already had started.
All that KSARC has done for me is going to stick with me for the rest of my life. I think all that I've learned about prevention has inspired me to continue to fight for everyone who is affected by sexual violence.
Primary prevention work is looking ahead and working to build safer communities by ending sexual assault perpetration.
The most important thing as far as prevention and communication to the public, to the community, is just getting them through the door and getting them there, and getting them into the dialogue to start with.
It's important for parents to have numerous conversations about boundaries, about consent, healthy relationships, because it's not something that you do just one time. It's something that you have to have those conversations over and over and over.
The greatest hope for prevention, I think, through education is with our young people. And that's one of the reasons that I am so impressed with the work of Bridget and her friends at Roosevelt High School.
Bridget has put a lot of work into bringing prevention into Roosevelt High School. She has facilitated awesome consent workshops with peers. She has had really important conversations with administration of the school, with her principal, with her teachers.
Efforts like Bridget's at Roosevelt School is a great example of how primary prevention can become contagious and catch on. So Bridget is one student at Roosevelt School, but she's doing efforts there that influence many, many students. And then those efforts continue and continue to families, to their communities, to the broader area.
Each of us, wherever we are, whatever we are doing, teach empathy, encourage compassion, talk about bystander interventions, discuss what consent really means. And we are complicit in the problem if we don't do that.
Preventing sexual assault is 100% possible. It can stop today. And so KSARC's goal is to move to that reality. And I would love it if people capture that spirit and capture that belief.
It starts with you.
It starts with you.
It starts with you.
It starts with you.
We all want communities free of sexual violence. It starts with you.
It absolutely starts with all of us. And I want to bring up Dennis Yule. Dennis, you want to join me up here? Dennis served as Superior Court Judge for Benton Franklin counties for 23 years. He retired in 2009. He has continued to be very busy and continues to be involved with programs and projects at the state and the local, state, and national levels, particularly related to minorities in justice, access to justice, juvenile justice, and specialty courts, and clearly has his own starring role now as a media personality. So thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Good morning. Just in case any of you missed it, I am Bridget's grandpa. That's my most prized credential. Mary Ellen, thank you very much for permitting me to be part of the program this morning and for your unflagging leadership of KSARC. Maybe it's appropriate right at this time to say your persistent leadership of KSARC. This may exceed my time slot, but I want to just very briefly ask everyone who is working at KSARC, all the staff that are present here this morning, to stand up. We need to see all of you. And Thank you for your work. If you could all just stand for a moment. I am so honored and privileged to be a part of this breakfast, and I am just as moved and inspired this morning as I was at my first Be Loud breakfast last year. In the late 70s, I was a young deputy prosecutor in a small eastern Washington county. There were 3 of us in the prosecutor's office. Prosecution was new to me. I'd started out my legal career in civil law, and sexual assault cases were foreign to me, and I dreaded those cases. I really dreaded those cases. Several assault cases involving children came along. Those cases involving child victims of sexual violence were excruciating for me. Every one of those cases that I had to deal with broke my heart. One of those cases is seared into my memory. A first-grade teacher systematically selected students that were particularly vulnerable, all of them children of Latino farm workers, except 2. 2 were receiving special education assistance. The teacher groomed each of them and repeatedly molested them over nearly an entire school year. It was an abysmal case. And as I was struggling with that case, I remembered hearing about a place over in Seattle called Rape Relief. And I gave it a call. And I got a call back from a wonderful person there who gave me some very helpful advice and information. She sent me a list of articles and books and reference materials and the names of some prosecutors around the state that had special expertise in dealing with child sex abuse cases. And she sent me a book that had just come out called He Told Me Not to Tell. That book, incidentally, started here at CASARC and is now used literally throughout the world. Well, Rape Relief got me through that case, and it changed my entire perspective. It helped me to see that just responding to sexual assault with a broken heart, the shake of a head, a sigh of resignation, make us complicit in the continuation of the scourge of sexual violence that still is among us in our communities. For 11 years that I was in the prosecutor's office, I continued to look to then CASARC for information and advice, and I always got it. I became a Superior Court judge, and during the 23 years that I served on the bench over in the Tri-Cities, CASARC continued to be a really invaluable resource for me on the bench and for other judges around the state through trainings and presentations at judicial conferences and resource materials. We all knew about CASARC and the assistance that it could provide. A year ago, I was here for my first Be Loud breakfast. And you know, when I heard about this Be Loud breakfast, that was a new term to me and a new concept. But I certainly get it now, and I think we all got it from what we have heard already this morning. I was transfixed at that breakfast by the stories I was hearing. Gripping stories like Walter's, that we're so grateful that you had the courage to share with us. Stories of pain and suffering and hopelessness, and also soaring stories of joy and accomplishment and hopefulness. I'd heard many stories like those over the course of 34 years that I was a prosecutor and then a judge. But the stories I heard here last year, and the courage and strength of those sharing them, were so moving, and the accounts of the work that KSARC was doing, the things that it was accomplishing to move toward that vision of a world without sexual violence, were so inspiring to me. A week before that breakfast last year, Bridget, she's my granddaughter, Bridget and I were having one of our occasional late night conversations about the problems of the world and how we were going to solve them, how she was going to solve them. I'd already had my chance. And she mentioned that a friend at school had disclosed to her that she had been sexually assaulted. And Bridget told me that her friend's disclosure really made her think about what could be done and about what wasn't being done at Roosevelt High School, where she was a student, to address the issue of sexual violence among high school kids. And she shared with me ideas and plans that she and her friends already had and steps that they had already begun taking to do something about sexual violence at Roosevelt. Well, that conversation was an epiphany to me. It reminded me that today's young people are a lot more perceptive and sensitive to the world around them than I was at their age, and much more ready to engage in that world around them than I was at that age. And here was my granddaughter already engaging, already being loud, and I didn't even know about it. Well, the breakfast was about a week away. What an amazing convergence of events. So I told Bridget about the breakfast, and I told her that I was going to be coming over for the breakfast, and I asked her if she would like to go with me. And Bridget, being Bridget, said, "I'd love to, Grandpa." And so sitting next to me at last year's breakfast was Bridget, who hadn't heard all the stories that she was hearing that morning, and who was just beginning to learn about the efforts of places like KSARC to overcome sexual violence. And I could see that she was deeply moved and impacted by what she had heard, who she had met. One of those being Rachel Taylor, the prevention services specialist at KSARC, who readily and very generously gave Bridget the tools and encouragement and support she needed to continue the work that she and her friends had already begun at Roosevelt. I am so proud of Bridget, you may have noticed, so proud of how she tackled the challenge of bringing sexual assault prevention work to her school. That is not an easy challenge for a high school student. It's not an easy challenge for any of us. Fortunately, there are other young people like Bridget who ask how they can do this in their own schools, and adults who ask how they can do this in their own communities. The simple answer is that whoever we are, wherever we are, whatever resources we have, each of us can do something. And each of us has a responsibility to do something about sexual assault. Over the years, I've gotten to know Deanne Yamamoto, who is the Deputy Executive Director at KSARC, and I can tell you that there is no more ardent and effective advocate for the prevention of sexual violence than Deanne Yamamoto. She has a clear, focused vision of a world without sexual violence. And when she says in a video about the work of KSARC that sexual violence prevention is possible, Deanne is not kidding. She does not take no or it's not possible, or we can't do this as an answer. And neither can we. What it takes to create a world without sexual violence is not just amazing persons like Bridget and extraordinary advocates like Deanne, but hundreds, all of us here, hundreds of ordinary people who come to understand that they can have an impact. It starts with each of us. It starts with each of us being honest with ourselves and recognizing that we bear some of the responsibility for continuing a culture that tolerates sexual violence if we don't personally practice and teach empathy, if we don't exhibit and encourage compassion, if we don't talk with others around us, our families, our coworkers, our neighbors, about the imperative of replacing inattention with intervention. If we don't talk about what consent really means, if we don't talk with our public leaders about the fundamental immorality and inhumanity of passing on to new and future generations a culture that still tolerates sexual violence. What we are about is cultural change, and cultural change is not easy. But the change we seek is happening, and KSARC is leading the way. With resources it has created and refined over 4 decades. It can only continue to do that, though, if we continue our generous support. Each of us has to be an agent of change, advancing it person to person, parent to child, neighbor to neighbor, community to community. This morning, we have an exceptional opportunity to be agents of change by supporting KSARC with our financial commitments to its work. As we conclude this wonderful, energizing event, I want to ask you to be loud by taking action to make that imagination a reality. By speaking up, for example, about consent, about healthy relationships, about appropriate gender roles, by readily and openly denouncing comments that we've all heard. Perhaps we have even said, boys will be boys. She was asking for it. It was just locker room talk. And by rejecting sexually demeaning jokes and comments, and finally by confronting everyone with this astonishing reality that 1 in every 4 of our girls will be the victim of sexual violence while they're a child, and 1 in every 6 of our boys will be victims of sexual violence during their childhoods. How can that be? How can we let that be? So be loud this morning by being energized. As Mary Ellen said, the view from the podium here is just stunning. To see all of us here sharing a common concern and vision. So I ask all of us to be energized by this breakfast. I think you can all feel it. And I ask you to leave this breakfast this morning by taking some of that energy with you and sharing it with your communities, your families, your neighbors. Bridget, I wonder if you would come up and join me here. I knew she would. She's my granddaughter. Bridget, I want you to just ignore the fact that there are 1,000 people sitting out here in this room. Is there anything that you would like to share? People have been listening politely to me, but I know that they really want to hear from you.
Well, good morning. I just want to share my experience with KSARC and say that I was faced with the fact that I had never had conversations surrounding sexual assault. So when sexual assault affected someone in my life, I was blind to what I needed to do to help. That is why I believe these important conversations need to be happening with everyone, as sexual assault is a topic that must be talked about. My high school was a great place to begin talking. Starting the conversation was the first step in taking away the silence from sexual assault. This information about consent and boundaries was new for students and teachers. Talking about sexual assault in general was new, but it is a very important conversation to be having so that we can be informed and continue to spread and share this knowledge that we are learning. And that is why we are here today, so that you can all help keep the conversation going and start the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you for your attention. I asked just one final thing, and that is that you be loud this morning by thinking carefully about the contribution you can make this morning through your gifts to KSARC. Mary Ellen mentioned the challenge pool, an extraordinary thing, 67,000 at this point. So I hope that you will be inspired by that and what you've heard this morning to consider your gifts carefully. If you're like me, you probably have come this morning with some idea in mind of how much you would give. I'm going to reevaluate that, and I hope that perhaps this will lead each of you to rethink that and to really rise to the challenge and give generously to keep this work going. That's the way to be loud, and I know that we can do that. Thank you very much, and remember to continue to be loud.
Thank you, Dennis, and thank you, Bridget, for all of your hard work, and especially Dennis for driving all the way over from Eastern Washington so he could be here this morning, and had the chance to talk to Bridget yesterday afternoon, and the fact that, you know, kids in high school, they don't have these conversations, so the fact that she is starting and they are having them is great. So being loud is certainly taking on more importance than ever. I know that every single one of us here in this room can make an impact, both on our own and collectively. So table captains, if you could distribute the envelopes around your table, if you haven't already, this is your chance, you know, to really make a difference in the lives of people like Walter and Jessica and really the thousands of survivors that KSARC helps every year, you know, as well as people like Bridget who are working hard at prevention. Thank you for a powerful ask, Dennis, and a great opportunity to make an even more meaningful impact with your gift today due to really the leadership of our President's Challenge donors. As you are busy doing your work there at the table, I just want to share a brief story. I was talking to Jeff Pyatt this morning, and we were talking about the impact that one action can have that we don't even realize, and then years later, someone comes up to you and says, you know, when you did this, it made a huge difference in my life. And it's some small action that we take that we don't even realize is impacting somebody else's life until years later. So think about the impact that you can have. Think about the impact that you can have. And with that, I want to thank every single person here this morning. You are a phenomenal group. I love seeing many of you here every year. And as you go ahead and do your housekeeping around your table, I don't want to keep you any longer, but thank you. I hope to see you again next year, and have a great day. And look for Mary Ellen's emails, too. See you later.